You've been breathing it in since the moment you opened your eyes. The ticking of clocks, the hum of thoughts, the quiet promise that things will make sense if you just stay on the path. But what if that path, your entire life even, has been unfolding inside a beautifully constructed illusion? A story so subtle, so thoroughly absorbed, that it never had to announce itself. You wake up in a body you didn't choose. You're told what time it is, what day it is, what kind of person you are. You move forward, one moment at a time, building memories, chasing meaning, solving problems. It all feels obvious. And that's the trap, because some illusions don't need to hide. They survive because they feel like home. The illusion that time flows forward, that there's a fixed you behind your eyes, that what you see is what's real, that your thoughts tell the truth. That control leads to freedom. 5 beliefs so embedded in your mind that you don't just believe them, you are them. But what if they aren't truths? What if they're the invisible architecture of a prison? Not the kind you fight against, the kind you never even knew you were in. This video isn't here to teach you a new philosophy or offer another framework for awakening. It's here to hold up a mirror for you mind. And as you begin to see these 5 illusions for what they are, a strange thing will happen. Your world, it's not going to end, but something in it will crack. That tension in your chest will loosen. The walls of your certainty will start to dissolve. We're not here to preach truth. We're here to question the default settings that most people don't stop to question. You must let your own inner knowing guide what makes sense and what doesn't. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Let's begin. Time feels like gravity, heavy, constant, always pulling us forward. You wake up, you age, you plan, you remember, and every step reinforces the idea that life moves in one direction: past, present, future, a straight line from birth to death. But that line could just be a story your mind is telling, and it's not the only version of time that exists. Einstein once revealed something strange and unsettling. Time is not absolute. It bends, it stretches. It depends on where you are, how fast you're moving, how close you are to mass. 2 people in different gravitational fields won't even experience the same second. In physics, now is negotiable. But it's not just space that reshapes time. Your brain does it too. Neurologically, your sense of time is a reconstruction, stitched together from fragments. The mind doesn't record reality, it predicts it. It patches together memory and expectation to build a usable sense of the moment. When you recall the past or imagine the future, the same regions of the brain light up. To the mind, they are made of the same stuff. This means something profound. Time is not something you travel through, it's something you generate. And yet, we organize our lives around a myth of movement, that the past is gone, the future is waiting, and you are a traveler sprinting towards something called success, purpose, or completion. This illusion of forward motion gives birth to urgency, to anxiety, to the haunting fear that you're running out of something you never had. But ancient traditions knew another kind of time, cyclical, eternal, always here. Not a river with a beginning and end, but an ocean with waves that rise and fall. What we call presence is not a state of mind. It's a different dimension of time entirely. You've already touched something outside of linear time, not in mystical experiences, but in ordinary moments that didn't feel ordinary. When you lost track of the clock during a long walk. When a conversation pulled you so fully into the present that hours passed unnoticed. When grief or beauty stopped your mind cold. And for a second, everything just was. These weren't escapes from time. They were glimpses of how time really works. How it bends, pauses, or disappears depending on where your attention goes. Linear time doesn't govern those moments. And that's the point. Because awakening isn't something you reach by following a timeline. It's something that happens when the illusion of the timeline breaks down. If the past is just a story your mind retells, and the future is only a projection, shaped by fear or desire, then what are you living in right now? Not a step on a path, not a countdown or a schedule, but a moment that exists fully on its own, the only moment that ever truly does. And this is where the unraveling begins. You say I dozens of times a day. I want. I remember. I'm not ready. I don't know who I am. But who exactly is that I? Most people imagine the self as something fixed, an inner witness, a stable core that's been watching life unfold since childhood. But this sense of continuity is also an illusion. Inside your brain, there is no single location where the self resides. There's no control room, no central observer, just networks of perception, memory, emotion, and prediction, working together to create a cohesive narrative. Thomas Metzinger calls it a self-model, a constantly updated simulation your brain uses to organize experience. It feels real because it's useful, but like a shadow, it disappears when you look directly at it. Even your memories, which seem so personal, are unstable. Each time you remember something, you reshape it. You edit the story, add emotion, forget details, invent others. You're not replaying the past, you're rewriting it again and again. So the self you think you are, the one you defend, explain, and fear losing, may be nothing more than a mental construct, a kind of user interface built for survival. Buddhism has whispered this truth for centuries. Anatta, or no self, is not that nothing exists, but that the you that we cling to is impermanent, conditioned, and ultimately empty of essence. At first, this sounds terrifying. If there's no solid self, who suffers, who loves, who wakes up in the morning? But consider this. Much of our suffering comes from trying to protect a version of self that's always under threat. Fear of change, fear of failure, fear of being seen as less than, all rooted in the need to preserve a permanent me. And so when that illusion softens, when we stop gripping the mask so tightly, something unexpected and beautiful happens. We begin to feel free, free to change, free to feel things we once rejected, free to be no one in particular. You've felt that? Moments when identity drops away, in deep meditation, in grief that's too vast for roles, in love that silences the story of I. The boundaries blur, and what remains isn't emptiness, it's presence. Without the illusion of a solid self, we become permeable, available to life, unfixed, but more real. And if the self is not what we thought, then perception itself must be questioned, because without someone to witness the world, what exactly are we seeing? You open your eyes and assume you're seeing what's there, the room, the trees, another person's face. But what if you're not seeing the world, only your brain's best guess? Perception feels like a mirror, faithfully reflecting what exists outside of you. But modern neuroscience tells a different story. You are not detecting reality, you are predicting it. The funny part is that we're not even experiencing the present moment as it is. We're living about 80 milliseconds behind it. That's how long it takes for our brain to process and assemble reality into something coherent. So the now you think you're in, it already happened. Strange, isn't it? But that's a subject for another video. The brain is locked inside a dark skull. It receives fragments, light, vibration, chemical signals, and uses those fragments to build a model of the world. This model is not a photograph. It's a hallucination, a controlled hallucination, shaped by memory, expectation, and need. Anil Seth describes consciousness as the experience of the brain's predictions coming true. Not because they're accurate, but because they're close enough to keep you alive. You see a cup before it's fully in view. You hear words before they're finished being spoken. You're not reacting. You're anticipating. Even your sense of body, color, space, and solidity is inferred. Your world is assembled, not revealed. And yet, this hallucinated stability becomes the foundation for belief. You think you see reality as it is. You believe that others are seeing the same thing, and when they don't, you assume they're wrong. This illusion makes empathy harder. It fuels judgment. It turns social constructs into sacred truths. But when you understand that perception is a construction, that out there is filtered through layers of biology, memory, and culture, something begins to shift. You start to loosen your grip. You stop insisting on being right. You begin to wonder what else is being edited before you even notice. Think of illusions. Those moments when your mind sees motion where there is none, color where there's only gray, a face in the clouds. These aren't failures of the brain. They are glimpses into how perception always works. You live in the illusion, but usually it holds. So, if your experience of reality is a guess, what else have you mistaken for truth? The next layer down will reveal it. Not the world outside, but the voice inside. The endless stream of thought that comments, interprets, judges, fears, and plans. We trust it because it sounds like us, because it never stops, because it insists. But thought, like perception, is not reality. A thought appears. Maybe it's simple like, I'm tired, or something subtle like, they don't really care about me, or maybe sharp like, I'll never get it right. And without hesitation, you believe it, not because it's proven or because you examined it, but because it arrived inside your mind. So it must be true. This is the fourth illusion, that thoughts reflect reality, that the voice in your head is a reliable narrator, that if it feels true, it is true. But thoughts are not facts. They're conditioned responses, habits made of language and memory. Most of them aren't original. They're echoes of your upbringing, your fears, your culture, your pain. In cognitive behavioral therapy, this truth is central. Your thoughts shape your emotional world, but they are not evidence. They can be challenged. They can be wrong. They can simply pass. In mindfulness traditions, this insight is taken even further. Thoughts are seen as weather, temporary phenomena moving through awareness. They don't define you. You don't need to follow them. You can watch them arise, float, dissolve. This practice is called metacognition, the ability to observe your mind without being swept away by it. And something happens when you do this. You notice how repetitive your thoughts are, how often they return to blame, fear, comparison, anticipation, how rarely they offer anything truly new. You begin to see how much of your suffering comes not from life, but from your commentary on life. You were criticized once, and now the thought says you're never enough. You were left behind, and now the thought says you can't trust anyone. You made a mistake, and now the thought won't let it go. These aren't insights. They're loops, and they're really annoying. The real awakening begins when you stop fusing with the thought, when you stop defending it, when you stop being it. You are not the thinker. You are the awareness in which thinking happens. And in that shift, even for a moment, space opens. A space where peace can enter. Your thoughts are not gone, but now they're no longer in charge. But one illusion remains, the one that holds all the others in place. The illusion that if you try hard enough, plan well enough, grip tightly enough, you'll finally be free. That's what we're going to explore next. You were taught to hold on, to plan, to prepare, to push, to manage your emotions, curate your image, and control your surroundings. Because only then, you were told, would you be safe. But control is a shapeshifter. It promises freedom while quietly becoming your prison. You plan your future to feel secure, but the plan changes. You rehearse conversations in your head, but people surprise you. You try to fix your pain, but some wounds don't move on command. Still, the mind insists, if you try harder, you'll get it right. If you master your thoughts, your time, your relationships, you'll finally arrive. But where is there? And have you ever truly arrived? Psychology calls it the illusion of control, the belief that we can direct outcomes far beyond our actual influence. In experiments, people press buttons that do nothing, yet feel responsible for the results. We crave agency. Even fake agency feels better than none. But the cost is steep. You grip the wheel tighter, even as the road crumbles. You blame yourself when life doesn't obey. You live in a low-grade panic, always adjusting, managing, bracing for the next break. And the soul, somewhere beneath all that effort, goes quiet. But here's what mystics, survivors, and awakened beings across centuries discovered. Freedom isn't the reward for getting control. It's what appears when you let go. Viktor Frankl, in the grip of a concentration camp, found meaning in surrender, not submission, but release. Taoist sages speak of Wu Wei, effortless action, not passive, but flowing. Not abandoning life, but aligning with it. Control isolates. Surrender connects. Control fears the unknown. Surrender opens to it. And in that openness, the final illusion begins to dissolve. You were never meant to master the storm. You were meant to stand still in the center of it. Let go. Not of care, not of integrity, but of the belief that you must hold everything together to be free. Watch what happens when you stop tightening your fist. You might find the door was never locked. You were just pulling it the wrong way. And as the illusion of control fades, something way deeper returns. Not chaos, but clarity. Not powerlessness, but presence. Not answers, but aliveness. And now, all 5 illusions begin to loosen. Time, self, perception, thought, control. The mind tries to stay in control because it was taught that's how to stay safe. But safety built on tension always comes at a cost. And when that grip loosens, even a little, clarity has room to return. The 5 illusions are still present, but they're no longer invisible. And once seen, they lose their authority. This is where the work begins. Not in fixing anything, but in watching what falls away when you stop holding so tightly. And if the unraveling feels familiar, subscribe. We'll keep going, one illusion at a time. Thanks for watching.